Thank you very much, Ambassador, for being with us. I will start with the war against ISIS. We've seen explosions and attacks in Europe in the past week in a rate that I don't recall in recent history. Do you think that is a norm right now of life in Europe, become normal part of the lives there? Are you concerned about that?
I don't think we should accept it as anything close to normal. Should not be normal, and we should fight terrorism with all our strengths. But one of the ways of fighting terrorism is not to allow them to disrupt our way of life, to question our values. So we stick to our values. We keep standing for the values that are the foundation of our societies. But at the same time, we have to reinvigorate our efforts to fight terrorism and also the root causes of terrorism. And we know this is a complex phenomenon that requires international cooperation of all countries, all governments that find it absolutely crucial to reject this threat to our societies.
More than 3 years of fighting ISIS in Iraq and Syria, and in Iraq seems to be coming to close end, especially at least in Mosul. Are we close to the end of ISIS?
I hope so. At least that's the efforts that we all are trying to pursue here at the United Nations. In Europe, all the European Union countries are united in these efforts, but we also united in supporting the large coalition that is fighting Daesh in the region. This is a collective effort. We will not succeed if we don't join efforts, all of us.
And what is your assessment about the role of Kurdish Peshmerga in this fight?
I think there is a great effort that has been deployed in Iraq to fight Daesh, and I would like to pay tribute to all of those that are part of this big effort. I'd like to praise the Iraqi authorities for their efforts in fighting Daesh and all of those that have contributed to it. I think this is a fight that has no borders. Unfortunately, the terrorists choose any means to threaten our security, so they require a very solid, very strong, very coherent, consistent response. And so we are encouraged by what we have seen in Iraq in the fight against Daesh, and we encourage all that participate in these efforts to continue these efforts. We hope to be close to eliminating Daesh, but this is a daily fight, a daily effort.
So while they're losing ground in Iraq and Syria, the attacks in Europe, recently in Tehran, in other capitals of the world, is increasing.
This basically shows that no one is immune, no one is protected, no one is preserved from this threat, which in consequence means that we all need to participate. We all need to contribute to fighting Daesh, regardless of our religion, regardless of our geographic location, regardless of our political ideas. If we don't want to have terrorism, we need to act together, join forces in fighting terrorism.
Do you think there should be a new international strategy to fight ISIS, other than the one we have right now?
I think we need to continue the effort that we started. I'm also encouraged by what the new Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, has done and is doing inside the United Nations to make the UN even more effective in fighting terrorism. Is creating a new structure. We support that. We believe that there is a new focus. So there is also a role for the United Nations, and we're very much looking forward to that.
And I want to jump into that talks about the Iraq after ISIS, and on the ground, ISIS is losing ground, and it's at least becoming history in terms of controlling a territory and having a caliphate. And there's a lot of talk of how to prevent that from happening again. And the Kurds have their own opinion. They say, we will go our own way. We will declare independence. What is the European Union's position about this?
Well, first of all, I'd like to praise the efforts of the Iraqi people in all its diversity in the fight against Daesh and the Iraqi authorities. We are fully behind that, and we are very encouraged by the progress that is being pursued within the framework of the large coalition against terrorism in the region. As far as Iraq is concerned, we pursue our support to the unity, the sovereignty, the territorial integrity of Iraq. We encourage all the efforts in view of reconciliation among different components of the Iraqi society. We appeal to refrain on unilateral action. We believe that there is a larger interest of Iraq to stay together within a process of reform, largely based on the constitution. I think there are elements there that are very important for the future of Iraq.
Well, so you have, not to make you sound old, but you have decades of experience in European Union, and you know, you've seen what happened in Eastern Europe. Sometimes separation and division of those states, especially in Yugoslavia, and European Union's role in that was the solution in a way. Why not that for Iraq? Why it's good for Eastern Europe, but it's bad for
well,
Iraq?
about age, don't underestimate the Portuguese. Cristiano Ronaldo is already 32 years old and is still a great player. So we are very resilient and very resistant, if I may make these comments about my Portuguese
agree,
dimension.
I'm a Cristiano Ronaldo fan too. Yeah.
Very good, so we are together. No, I think there's, each country needs to find its way, and we respect national sovereignty. But we see in Iraq a number of problems, of course, difficulties that we don't underestimate. We believe that the pursuit of reforms on the basis of the constitution, the efforts for reconciliation, bringing together the different elements of Iraqi diversity, I think this is the way forward. We believe it is the way forward. But again, it's for the Iraqi people to take the decisions they should take. But we think the efforts towards unity, territorial integrity, sovereignty, respecting the sovereignty of Iraq, along the process of reform based on the constitution, this is maybe the most promising future for Iraqi. We continue to support the Iraqi authorities in their fight against Daesh. As I said earlier, they've been quite effective, and they should continue in that way.
I say European Union is one of the most transparent, I would say, international actors out there. So sometimes the mediation by European Union is preferred by parties, conflicting parties, such as in Iraq or even in Syria. So there is the argument: why not European Union has more direct, effective diplomatic role, for example, to solving issues in Iraq, which is right on your border, affecting European Union members, instead of having UK doing this alone or other member states doing it alone? Why not to have European Union, an ambassador like you, go out there and have that role?
Well, we are a diverse reality, right? We are composed of 28 member states, and sometimes when we have one or the other member state acting it, they're also acting with the support of the rest of the European Union. But let me say about Iraq, we are present in Baghdad, of course, but we also have a presence in Erbil. The head of the UN mission, UNAMI, is a European, Jan Kubiš. So you will see Europeans in many places, in different expressions of the European diversity. What I can tell you, and I can guarantee, is that we are very committed to helping the Iraqi people in this difficult phase, as much as we are particularly involved in the Syrian process. We are absolutely behind the efforts of the United Nations. We believe that we need to stop this tragedy in Syria. Now, Syria was the source, one of the big sources of our civilization. Syria was a bridge between the Middle East and Europe, a great country. Or this bridge is collapsing, unfortunately. We are saddened by what we have seen in the last few years. So that's why we urge, and we are extremely active, and sometimes not visibly active, but still, I can guarantee you, very active in supporting a political solution. There is no military solution for the situation in Syria. We need to be aware of that. So support to the Geneva process, to the UN, to Staffan de Mistura, to Antonio Guterres in their efforts to find a solution.
I'll come to the Syria in the second part of this interview. And before that, going back to Iraq, there's right now reports by the United Nations that Iraqi government is preparing a proposal, a budget, for reconstruction of the area that has been impacted by the ISIS, which is 7 provinces that has been devastated by ISIS war. And of course, Iraq is asking for international support with that.
Well, what I can tell you on that is that we are great friends of Iraqi people, great friends of Iraq. By the way, our ministers, our foreign ministers, will discuss Iraq and certainly agree on important conclusions in their next meeting during the month of June. So just to illustrate how attached we are to support the Iraqi people, the Iraqi authorities in their efforts, not only against Daesh, but also in building a country, a reconciled country, a strong country, will be certainly, once again, a big player in the region.
Do you think Europe and European Union members are willing to spend millions in an oil-rich country like Iraq to help reconstruct in future?
Well, European taxpayers, European people are ready to help where help is needed and help is justified, but also when local conditions are met, when there is a unified attitude towards reconstruction, when there is consensus towards reconstruction, when there is reconciliation among different factions and different elements of society. All that is important. You will always find European solidarity if the good conditions are met locally in each country for that to happen.
Well, now I'll go for a short break, then we come back to talk about Syria and Operation Raqqa, and to talk about another war-torn country in the Middle East. بینران و بیسرانی خوشویستی رودا و دچین ناوبڕێکی کورت و پاشان دەگەڕێن وڵاتە. بینەران بیسەرانی خۆشەویستی ڕوودا و گەڕینە وڵاتان بۆ ئەم هەفتەی بینە تایبەتە لەگەڵ باڵوێز و سەرۆکی وەفدی یەکێتی ئەوروپا لە نەتەوە یەکگرتوەکان. Ambassador, I want to start talking about Syria. Staffan de Mistura-led process in Geneva is, what as the name suggests, is still a process. Even members of Security Council, despite their support for Staffan de Mistura, they indicate that it is not working. It hasn't worked so far. There's not much political will on the sides to agree. What should we do next? Shouldn't we have a plan B to the Geneva process at this point?
Let me start by saying that what's happening in Syria is a tragedy. First and foremost for the Syrian people. There is huge human suffering in the region. We need to stop this. But this is having an impact in the region, and even beyond the region, as you know, with a direct impact in our own countries in the European Union. So we are absolutely determined, we European Union, the institutions in Brussels, Mrs. Mogherini, our High Representative for Foreign Policy and Security, all the 28 member states of the Union, to contribute to finding a solution for this problem. And we believe that there is no military solution for this problem. There are only political solutions for it. And we believe that in the search for a political solution, the United Nations is crucial. That's why we support António Guterres, the Secretary General, Staffan de Mistura, the special representative, special envoy, the one who was hands-on driving this process. They have our full support. We believe that the Geneva process can deliver. It's an intra-Syrian UN-mediated dialogue. We believe this is the only way to find the right solutions for this tragedy in Syria. And we continue to be committed to it. We continue to support the Syrian opposition, but we continue to support the process as such, and we will not give up. We will not give up.
The parties of the war, and we're talking about Assad side, opposition, ISIS, I could count a dozen others, they don't seem to believe that there is no military solution. I mean, there is the belief in Syria and in the region that among superpowers like the United States and Russia, they seem to believe there is a military solution in Syria.
Well, if they do so, they are wrong. We believe there is no military solution. That's why we've been so committed. But not only supporting the political process. If you see, we have been the main source of humanitarian aid. up to now more than 9 billion euros have been committed to Syria and the region in support of Syrian refugees, in support of all the dire humanitarian needs that this conflict has created. But we are looking beyond the humanitarian. And we believe so much in the political process that we are already talking about what we can do after a political solution is found. Finding a political solution is a condition for us supporting reconstruction of Syria. But we are already working on that next phase, because we believe that there is no alternative to a political solution. So we had a conference in Brussels a few months ago that raised another 6 billion euros and more to come in the coming years, provided a political solution is found. So because we want to send a strong incentive, a message of incentive to the parties, but also to the regional players, that there is a future for Syria. There has to be a future for Syria. And this future for Syria we are ready to contribute to. But for that to happen, all need to come together and find the political solution.
Has the European Union pressured Moscow in either way or through the members?
As I said earlier, it requires solution for the crisis in Syria, the devastating crisis in Syria, relies heavily on the parties, on the Syrian people and their representatives, but also on regional partners. That's why we think the Astana process is a useful complement to the Geneva process. We believe it could create conditions for ceasefire, certainly, provided that the guarantors are fully implemented and fully committed to it. So we call on all parties, Russia, Turkey, and Iran, those involved in Astana are certainly part of this group of partners that need to come together to help the Syrian people find the solutions that we need. So we call on all partners, inside and outside Syria, through the process of the UN, but also in complementary processes like the Astana one, contribute to finding the solution.
From Astana to Geneva or any other political talks, because of political reasons, the Kurds are not represented. They are not represented on the table.
We believe that all different elements of the Syrian society, as much as for when we discussed Iran, for the Iraqi society, need to be part of the solutions for these problems. If there is a future for these countries, it's on the basis of reconciliation, of understanding among the different components of our societies. That's what we've done in Europe. That's what we've done in Europe. Europe is diverse, and we were for centuries at war among ourselves. And we came to the conclusion that we needed to overcome those differences, try to have and achieve elements of reconciliation and common action. And this is what we call on countries that are devastated by conflicts like Syria, or for that matter, Iraq facing terrorism these days, that we all come together, that we all overcome the differences, and we all try to build a future together.
What is the one lesson that you would say from European post-war experience after World War II that we can learn in the Middle East after this wars, not just war, throughout the region? What can be done after this to make sure when it's done, if it's done, we will have at least a stable region?
Well, we don't like to teach lessons to other people. We are very modest about what we have achieved. But we have achieved a lot in Europe, and we are very proud of what we have achieved. For the last 70 years, we have been living in peace in Europe, largely thanks to the process of European integration. We are celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Treaty of Rome. What is it about? It's about peace and reconciliation, first of all, but also joining efforts around common goals, common objectives, and common values. This is very important. And this is what created in Europe what we have today. Europe is the best place to live in the world.
I know that.
You agree with me?
Yeah, I agree.
It's a great achievement. But 70 years ago, we were at war. And we had been at war for centuries. Civil wars in Europe devastated our continent. We stopped it on the basis of tolerance, recognition of diversity, and a common effort to find consensus. This is the European experience. If others want to share it, they are most welcome. But we are not in the business of teaching lessons to anyone, but we are very proud of what we achieved.
Well, one of the direct threat to one of this beautiful beautiful European cities is now, I would say, is one aspect of Syrian war, which is what's happening in Raqqa, which is the self-claimed capital of ISIS. As the operation started, we've seen all these attacks in European cities. How concerned are you about hundreds of foreign fighters, European fighters, coming back to Europe as a result of this operation that's happening?
We are obviously very concerned by that. This is one of the many aspects of our fight against terrorism, is to go not only at the root causes of the conflicts that may have created better conditions for terrorism to spread, but also for some domestic dimensions of this phenomenon. So, and again, I come back to my point about Europe. We can only do that through international cooperation, certainly among European countries, but also in the context of the United Nations and the context of dialogue between different regions. Terrorism is a global phenomenon that requires global solutions, and certainly global cooperation on different areas, and throughout this interview we touched upon some of those elements.
Former Secretary of State John Kerry in a recent interview said the Europe and the United Kingdom specifically, they failed in integrating Muslim communities into their society. We did a better job here in the US. That is why you are seeing all these attacks. What do you think about that?
Again, I mean, you will never see Europeans claiming that we have better solutions than anybody else, right? We are not perfect, and I think we are learning with our own mistakes in a number of areas, including the way we are able or unable to rightly integrate immigrants into our societies. This is a learning process, and it has to do with not only the communities that welcome new people, but also about people that integrate new communities. An effort is required from all sides. There's a big debate in Europe going on right now about all that. Some countries have found different solutions. I don't think we should claim my solution is better than yours. I think we should share experience and try to work together to find common solutions for a very complex situation that we have today.
Ambassador, thank you very much for this opportunity. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.